Welcome to Education in Focus. I'm Eliana Kernodle. Polling shows that a vast majority of Americans do not believe the federal government should have control over education policy. Joining me to tell us more about this is the Center Square's Andrew Rice. Andrew, the Center Square Voters' Voice poll asked American voters who should set standards for curriculum, testing, and school choice. What were the overall results?
Right. Well, as you said, Eliana, the Voters' Voice poll revealed that most voters do not believe that the federal government should have control over curriculum, testing, and school choice. Only 11% of American voters agree with that. Instead, 33% of American voters said that local school districts should set those curriculum, testing, and school choice standards. And a sizable amount said that parents should set educational standards at about 23%.
What about the state level?
Right. Yes. And so at the state level, about 27% of overall voters said that the state government should be setting educational standards such as, curriculum, school choice, and those. But we really did see in the largest portion, largest portion was that 33% that say local school districts should really have that control over curriculum, testing, and school choice.
So then what's the number breakdown between Republicans, Democrats, and independents? Because, that's surprising that overall it would be such a large number favoring that. You would think that there's some division, at least, among the parties.
Right. Yes. And we did actually see quite a bit of division among the parties. So the Voters' Voice poll obviously took characteristics out, such as Republican, Democrat political affiliation. And it found that 32% of Republican voters supported allowing parents to set education policy, whereas only 13% of Democrat voters would have said the same. That was a really significant shift that was probably one of the most significant differences between those political parties. And I think that does reflect some of the more sentiment in conservative circles and in Republican circles, where parents want to set that education policy. They don't want other school boards school boards, even on a local level, setting that curriculum. And so that was probably one of the most significant shifts. We definitely did see that in a very interesting amount. For Democrats, though, a lot more Democrats tended to want to support those local school districts setting education policy. So 41% of Democrats supported letting those local school districts set that policy, which was a plurality in comparison to some of those other categories. And then even looking at independent voters, 36% of those voters said they would also support local school districts setting that kind of education policy. So they were the primary motivators that pushed that overall portion of support for local school districts controlling education policy.
And how did the results of this poll kind of tie into the populist moment that we're seeing?
Right. Well, the populist moment is very interesting to consider because back in March, President Trump signed an executive order asking for the Department of Education to be shuttered, starting the process to shutter the Department of Education. And just recently, I was at an event where the Secretary of Education, Linda McMahon, spoke, and she really highlighted how she wants to be the last Secretary of Education. She wants the department to end after her tenure. And she has been taking lots of steps to move in that direction. Really, some of the biggest steps, she's been withdrawing federal funds from school districts. She's been shifting some other grant programs and funding programs that are normally going through the Department of Education, should have been shifting those to departments of labor, departments of state, and she's working on getting those out so that the Department of Education doesn't need to have as many employees, doesn't need to exist, period. And so that's been something that's really interesting to monitor, especially in relation to these poll results where, like we discussed earlier, only 11% of people think the federal government should be controlling these kind of things. But there is a sort of contention here because the Trump administration is still pursuing a lot of its own ideology related to transgender students and DEI policies that are going on in schools. And so the education department has still taken on a larger role than previous departments in pursuing legal action against local school districts, against universities, and against educational institutions across the country who uphold or promote transgender ideology, allowing biological men into other locker rooms that they say aligns with their gender identity, and all of these kinds of things. So it's been really interesting to see. It's definitely a point of contention that's held up between what role will the education department have moving forward, and especially in a future administration, maybe a Democrat administration that might want to bring the Department of Education back. It's been a long Republican promise to dismantle the Department of Education, and the Trump administration definitely seems like it's attempting to move forward with that in some ways, but the political ideology that it is trying to combat in some of these school systems and university systems is certainly making it a little questionable what role the Department of Education should have in the future.
And Mike Noble, who's the founder and CEO of Noble Predictive Insights, which is who the Center Square works with to do these polls, he also kind of pointed to the difference between college educated and non-college degree holding respondents, and what they like, how their differences in their responses, and kind of how that connects to the populist kind of ideas at the moment. Can you tell us a little about that?
Absolutely. So, as well as the political divide between Republicans, Democrats, and independents over who should control these things, there was also a significant divide in college education, what people believe based on the kind of college education they had. So, about 37% of respondents with no college degree said that local school districts should set this testing, curriculum, and school choice standards. And that's opposed to about 32% of respondents with college degrees that think that think state governments should control that education policy. So it seemed like more people without college degrees believe in that localized control. And Mike Noble, like you said, pointed out that it does dovetail with this broader populist mood that people are looking at, and that people want their decisions about their curriculum to be closer aligned with their communities and not with the federal bureaucracy. So there was definitely a significant impact from the level of education about the polls results, going back to how much the federal government should control with education policy. There's only about 15% of college educated respondents who said that the federal government should control that policy. And then 8%, this was really significant, 8% of college respondents with no college degree said that the federal government should control that policy. So that was a really significant shift. And it really shows that more localized control is really where these people are hoping for.
Well, Andrew, thank you for sharing this story with us. You can keep up with this story and more at thecentersquare.com.